you located Holden yet?
Sensors indicate Holden is 10 miles west. It seems he is headed to watch another Marvel movie.
Figures. You know, Marvel movies aren't as great as everybody says.
I'm done trying to convince you. There's a new Marvel movie tonight and I'm gonna be there. I just wish that you would come with me.
Can't do it. Those movies are mediocre at best.
Whether you like them or not, their mark on our culture is unmistakable. Surely you can see that.
Nope.
Don't stand in my way.
What are you gonna do about it?
You've waited a long time. It's finally here. We're reviewing Captain America Civil War. I'm here with Pastor, who's holding the camera. Jeremy's over here. I'm really looking forward to this. We're not gonna hype it up. We're just gonna check out Civil War. Just from where the fans stand, this was a big movie. I'm gonna be taking notes throughout the movie. Matt usually does on his phone as well. So if you see us jotting down, we're gonna be taking notes because there's a lot that we're gonna wanna talk about. Pastor, how long has it been since you've seen Civil War?
I think about a month after it came out in theaters. I saw it one other time.
I haven't seen it in probably 6 months, but I am inevitably waiting for the comment that says, dude, why are you gonna make Civil War a political discussion? It's the Civil War. But I'm really excited about it.
I have no expectations. Obviously, there's this big divide that's about to happen, and I'm sticking with my boy.
Team Iron Man.
Jenna, what about you? Do you have any expectations about the movie?
I'm a little worried that I'm going to be overwhelmed. I feel like there's a lot that's going to be happening in the movie, and I'm already kind of worried that I'm not going to catch it all.
I really want us to focus on the actual issue that is brought up in the movie, not just because we like the characters individually, but also their choices, because Cap does some stuff that's kind of out of character. Iron Man sort of does too, I would argue, from how he would act from the first movie.
I am not like solely Iron Man because it's Iron Man. If Iron Man screws up, I'm gonna call him on it. And he has. He screwed up in the beginning. He was a dick in the beginning. 84 movies left in this. I might actually turn into like Captain America because there's a lot of pieces with him that you would think that I'd be in love with, but they just do a terrible job of presenting it.
Our friend Glenn, he brought up a good point when we saw him yesterday about why you like Iron Man as much as you do.
Yeah.
So Matt's slogan for his podcast is better than yesterday every day. Glenn was like, I think the reason you like Iron Man is because he's always better every single time. So like in the first Iron Man movie, he had the ice problem, he fixed it, and that's how he was able to win. In Iron Man 2, he had the problem with the electricity. And then in the next Avengers movie, he got charged by Thor and he fixed it. Glenn said he's never defeated the same way twice.
Yep. I'm all about those lessons or those moments that like you can grow from. And I know somebody in the comments like, can you just watch the movie? Like, do you have to be, but that's what I gather from it.
I also think of all the characters that we've seen so far in the MCU, Matt's personality is most similar to Tony Stark.
See, now Holden said that he really thought that Captain America was gonna be where I was at.
I thought that your ideologies would have more closely aligned with Steve Rogers than with Iron Man.
Yes, they're that good old boy, like always does the right thing. So I relate to that piece, but again, they just haven't done a good job at portraying him to me.
And today's video is brought to you by my wonderful patrons. Everybody on screen right now is either a producer or executive producer tier on my Patreon. Without them, I wouldn't be able to keep making these videos. I mentioned before, I'm still furloughed from my job, so YouTube and Patreon are my only sources of income. Thank you guys so much for keeping me from being kicked out of my apartment. I really appreciate it. And guys, let's get into it. Captain America, Civil War. That's your boy.
Yep, jetpack's getting smaller.
We need fire and rescue on the south side of the building.
You know, they say sarcasm is a metric for potential. If that's true, you'll be a great man someday. I'll get the bags.
They say there is a correlation between generosity and guilt. You think you fight for us? You just fight for yourself. He's dead, and I blame you.
For the past 4 years, you've operated with unlimited power and no supervision. That's an arrangement the governments of the world can no longer tolerate. The Sokovia Accords. That the Avengers shall no longer be a private organization.
The Avengers were formed to make the world a safer place.
Our very strength invites challenge. Challenge incites conflict. And conflict breeds catastrophe.
We need to be put in check. Whatever form that takes, I'm game.
What if there's somewhere we need to go and they don't let us? We may not be perfect, but the safest hands are still our own.
Two people in a room can get more done than 100. Unless you need to move a piano. Baba, yeah.
Everybody get down!
In my culture, death is not the end. It's more of a stepping off point. I'll kill him myself.
Oh, I like this dude. I like this dude.
I wasn't in Vienna. I don't do that anymore.
They're entering the building. Preach! Preach!
So I ask you, as both warrior and king, how long do you think you can keep your friends safe from me?
Dude,
That is the line.
that is the line.
Every time I think
Well,
you
it's
see
100
things the right
acres
way.
with a lap pool. It's got a screening room. There's worse ways to protect people.
Protection. Is that how you see this? This is protection? It's internment,
She's
Tony.
not a U.S. citizen, and they
Oh,
don't
come
grant
on,
visas
Tony.
to weapons of mass
She's a
destruction.
kid.
Give me a break!
Javoy.
Stop.
Zinadzit.
He wanted to know exactly where.
Why would he need to know that?
Because I'm not the only Winter Soldier.
Hey, I'm Peter.
Tony. So now we're in business.
You didn't tell me anything.
Oh, nice catch. 3,000 pounds, 40 miles an hour.
Look, when you can do the things that I can, but you don't, and then the bad things happen, they happen because of you.
Communes.
They will never stop being afraid of you.
I can't control their fear, only my own.
Can you move your seat up? No. I already am.
Captain America.
Mr. Lang?
Wow, this is awesome. Captain America. I know you too. You're great.
The psychiatrist. He's behind all of this.
Captain.
Your old war buddy killed innocent people yesterday.
And there are 5 more super soldiers just like him. I can't let the doctor find him first, Tony. I can't.
Under ruse!
Big fan of Spider-Man.
Yeah, we'll talk about it later.
Hey guys, something.
I believe this is yours, Captain America.
What the hell is that?
You have a metal arm? That is awesome, dude. Hey, buddy, I think you lost this.
Now!
Oh, come on! Oh, man, I thought it was a water truck.
You got hard, kid. Where you from?
Queens?
Brooklyn.
Clearly, I made a mistake. Sam, I was wrong. Cap is definitely off the reservation, but he's about to need all the help he can get.
You seem a little defensive. It's been a long day.
An empire toppled by its enemies can rise again, but one which crumbles from within, that's dead.
Oh my god.
Howard. Howard.
I didn't know it was him.
Shut me. I just did you know.
Yes.
When the dust cleared and the screaming stopped, it took me 2 days until I found their bodies. And the Avengers, they went home.
Vengeance has consumed you. It's consuming them. I'm done letting it consume me.
The best bygone good moment.
Tell that to the dead.
The living are not done with you yet.
Stay down. Final warning.
I could do this all day.
That shield doesn't belong to you. You don't deserve it. My father made that shield.
Are you? I've been waiting this whole time.
Stank.
Yes, this is Tony Stank. You're in the right place. Thank you for that.
I guess I thought by not telling you about your parents, I was sparing you. I can see now that I was really sparing myself. If you need me, I'll be there.
Sure about this? I can't trust my own mind.
You know, if they find out he's here, they'll come for him.
Let them try.
Just finished Captain America Civil War. After watching it again, I think that it's probably my favorite MCU movie up until this point. Of all the MCU movies, I don't know if it was just us all watching it together or what it was, but I freaking love this movie. Real quick, Matt, were you surprised to see Spider-Man? I was really trying to hold off on telling you that he was going to be in it, or did you already know?
No, I did not know that he would be here.
I mean, I knew he was going to show up at some point.
While the first Avengers movie was happening, there was the Amazing Spider-Man movies with Andrew Garfield that we haven't seen yet. Spider-Man, the film rights for him anyway, were owned by Sony Pictures. So Marvel Studios could not legally use Spider-Man in any of those movies. I remember when the first Avengers movie came out, people were like, where's Spider-Man? Because Spider-Man was always a big part of the Avengers. When this movie came out, Sony and Marvel Studios finally came up with a deal to put Spider-Man into the movie. There was a lot of like contingency and like a lot of red tape, but they finally got him in. And even now, there's still some push and pull about how to handle the characters. Like Venom, we've talked about how we want to see Venom, is still owned by Sony, so Venom can't. But they're like, well, maybe we can cross over. So there's a lot of stuff still going on. I really wanted to bring that up because it was so pivotal in 2016, because even the trailers, there's that shot at the airport where it's like all of them lined up. In the trailers, they didn't have Spider-Man in there because they hadn't officially decided or officially worked out a deal to have him in the movie yet. So it really came down to the wire. I really loved the evolution of their work as a team, especially in the opening sequence, whenever they're taking on Crossbones. Going from like the first Avengers movie to seeing how they all work together. Wanda, you know, sending up Captain America, how Falcon and them all work together. I really just enjoyed that. Secretary Ross was in the movie. He's really the only thing that ties the Incredible Hulk to the MCU. I want to give Iron Man some credit. I feel like I just naturally rag on him because you love him so much and I'm more Captain America kind of guy. His character growth, going from the first Iron Man movie to being such a narcissist, to this movie, him feeling so much guilt about the death of that kid in Sokovia that it becomes his motivation, I thought was very, very incredible. And even still, Matt, we're not at the end of Tony's character arc. One thing as a comic book fan, in the comics, Spider-Man and Tony Stark, depending on which comic line, they do have this sort of relationship. There's also a relationship in the comics between Spider-Man in Captain America. And in this movie, obviously, there's more of that Tony Stark Spider-Man relationship. I'm glad that they still gave a little bit for those of us that wanted to see Captain America and Spider-Man sort of have a moment. A bygone Jim moment, you probably wrote it down. Probably the best bygone Jim moment we've had so far. T'Challa talking to Zemo. Vengeance has consumed you. It is consuming them. I am done letting it consume me. That was really, really powerful. This movie had a lot of really good one-lines, response lines type of thing. Pastor, watching it again, how do you feel about it?
I actually enjoyed it way more now the second time than the first time because I eliminated the hype. This was the last MCU movie that I followed the trailers very closely. I am Team Captain just for several reasons, like the fact that I don't believe that someone should be told that they have to do the right thing. I feel like they should just do it themselves, that life is about choices. You always have a choice. My opinion or my analogy is if a doctor fails to save a life, should they go to prison? It's the same kind of thing. It's not something that is the doctor's fault. It's just life happens. And that moment where Wanda unfortunately blows up Crossbones and kills however many people in that half of the building, it's not her fault, but it still happened.
People also discredit Wanda for saving the people on the ground as well. I mean, obviously other people died, but had she not tried, people still would have died, maybe even more.
Having an idealistic mentality is important, but forcing ideals into a realistic world is futile. It's really hard because it's a very touchy subject, whether it's the doctor analogy or gun control. I know.
Easy, easy.
I'm all for a choice. That's my stand.
I think you guys bring up very good points about a lot of the story beats, about a lot of the lore and the characters. One of the things that I find the most fascinating about Civil War is traditionally, when you see a superhero movie, you've got your good guys, your superheroes, and you've got your supervillains. And this movie really challenges that notion. I think what gives this movie so much more gravitas than a lot of the other films in this is that Tony's right. Steve is right.
Yeah.
Fundamentally, they both bring up really compelling arguments, and I think you fall on the side that you do because of personal beliefs, but there's times throughout the movie where you find your allegiance shifting, and I think that's really powerful storytelling. A lot of people sleep on Baron Zemo or Helmet Zemo in this movie. He's not a great villain. If you ask me, other than Thanos, he is the most effective villain in the entire MCU because he's able to break them apart from the inside.
Yep.
What's fascinating is this is a Captain America movie, but if you focus on the character's journey and the story arc, Black Panther is the one that has the most defined arc. He is led by vengeance. He wants nothing more than revenge. And then he realizes at the end that essentially he's no better than Zemo. Zemo gets this very human and empathetic moment at the end. You know, we're calling him a dick through the whole movie. And then you realize they dropped a freaking building on his family. They are responsible for his death. And I feel like this is a movie about consequence. When they show all of the cities falling and the Hulk just smashing through buildings, you look at it as entertainment and enjoyment, and then all of a sudden it puts it into perspective and you're like, yo, like there really is a very human cost to all of these things. When it comes to Captain America, I feel he put his boyfriend from 100 years ago so far ahead of all of his team that he'd been with forever, and to me I felt like it might not be as selfless as it might initially seem. And at the end when Steve says we don't need to do this, and Tony says, I don't care, he killed my mom. It's like, how can you not feel that? To watch them fight at the end, it's devastating. It's not a good feeling to watch Tony and Steve essentially almost beat each other to death. And I just feel like there's this pathos that's balanced so well with these just hilarious moments. We're laughing through so much of it. And then when it gets to that third act, all of a sudden it gets very real and the stakes get very high. So like, I feel like this is the most nuanced and maybe the most intellectually challenging of the Marvel movies. And going back and rewatching it, I feel like it really bridges the gap between your Avengers movies and your Captain America Winter Soldier in a way that's really fulfilling.
I think a lot of really good points have been brought up. I still have some that haven't been brought up yet. It really brings to light the point that both sides were right and both sides were just as wrong. Them realizing that through the movie is really eye-opening as far as, you know, they really stuck to what they thought was right, which I think for both Tony and Cap, they stuck to their guns. They stuck to what was right, which in their mind, which I think is great for both of them. And then, you know, the arc of both of them realizing that kind of the compromise in the middle at the end was right. I think Tony, I know we've talked about his character arc and how he gets better every movie and he realizes and, makes his suits better and makes things better. I think, in my opinion, he's driven by fear instead. He's trying to fix what's happened in the previous movie and he can't see the future. He can't see what's going to happen next. He's just really hyper focused on what's happened in the past and try to fix that and not let that happen again and not think about what he could do right or wrong in the future. What a typical human reaction for him to get so hyper focused on what he should do or what he could do or what he shouldn't do, and then he pushes the person that he loves the most away from him. That sucks. I think there was a lot of good lessons on at the airport scene where they were trying to get Bucky and Cap to the airplane. They took one for the team. They sacrificed. They knew they were going to be in trouble. They knew they were going to be in prison, and they sacrificed for the greater good. I thought that was a good kind of story arc for them. Maybe sometimes the legal thing isn't the right thing. I think that's been repeated in history several times. I think overall it was really well-timed humor along with some really deep life lessons. I think no matter what the age or the gender of the audience, you could really get something, even something very different from the movie. So I thought it was really well done.
All right, Matt, what did you think?
I didn't like it.
Matt, what?
No, I'm just kidding. I think that I'm gonna surprise a few people with this response because I was surprised myself.
Yeah, I'm really hoping so.
Look at the anticipation on that man's face.
Pastor, with you being here, Matt and I are like never in frame together.
Oh, that's right.
At any point in time.
Hey,
so,
how you doing? Matt from Mountain Fitness. Good to see you.
We're actually wearing each other's merch. That was That was not planned. So we support each other. So we're good friends. All right, good. I'm sorry.
The first 5 minutes, I was like, ooh, all right, kind of a rough start. I don't know why. Just the fight scenes were just very in your face. I'm definitely the type of person that's more character-driven movies than I am about the action. But I let that go.
I remember whenever Scarlett Johansson was like flipping the people around, I could hear you go, oh, because I know you hate the flippy martial arts.
Mad respect, but I'm just like, okay, you kick ass. I get it. Moving on. I did like the little nod that they gave to Captain America, because I'm Team Iron Man. What did Spider-Man say? He's like, oh, that's definitely not breaking the laws of physics, right?
Not obeying the laws of physics at all, does it?
I appreciated that.
That's been a running joke in just like the MCU community anyway, so it's funny that they sort of did it in the movie as well.
Tony has a traumatic past. And even before we found out how Mom and Dad died, he was opening up at MIT making the speech, and that gripped me because his character is very flawed in so many ways. I think emotionally it's very obvious. He very much is bravado, has to put on, he knows it all, he's perfect, he's intelligent, he can build anything. There's so much compensation with him. So to finally see why, and then for it to develop right in front of you, the trauma, even more traumatic of figuring it out, was just like gripping.
Did you see it coming, that Winter Soldier killed his parents?
No, I did not. I did not see that coming. I realized it when like they were zooming in and the score started coming in. I was like, no way, no way. And I felt the drama there.
How convenient that there was a security camera that caught it all.
Very good point. Who puts those just on the side of the road? Jenna, don't focus on the little minute details. Nobody wants you to do that.
There is a difference between plot convenience and nitpick.
There was one point where they said there's a connection between generosity and guilt. The fact that Tony Stark was speechless, because let's be honest, how often has that happened? He was speechless when the woman was like, you killed my son, it's your fault. He was just like, and I was just like, good Lord, he just kept getting hit and hit and hit and hit. But I think it's all valid. Every point that he was hit, it was very valid. I thought it was a very interesting point because Captain America is pretty calculated. He knows what he's doing. So Cap losing track of basically what's going on around him because of Bucky, like you said, like you were talking about, his friend from 100 years ago, the 16-year-old kid again from Brooklyn. Like, I think that was an important point. By the way, a 13-hour triple bypass, I'm not saying it's impossible, but there had to be a lot of complications for that. Just saying. So this was a small little line, but I really appreciated it because it's true. Strength brings conflict. As we get stronger, more conflict, and most of the time, more difficult conflict comes. It depends on how you respond. That is so echoed in this movie at many different points. There were so many layers to this movie. Like, my list goes on and on and on. I apologize for your editing, Holden.
Yeah, I bet you're real sorry.
Vision. He's obviously becoming self-aware, and like the little dot on the forehead, that speaks volumes too because he knows he's being controlled. He isn't as free as he thought he might have been. The UN. I feel that their decision to basically make all the Avengers sign a contract is because they feel a loss of control. I'm really glad they addressed it on how just buildings are being blown up and just like, can you think of the damage we're gonna have to replace here? I mean, can you imagine the stimulus checks? But the way that the UN came at them with this ultimatum of sign the contract or we're, you know, arresting you or suppressing you, that was the wrong move. Nobody ever responds well to suppression or an ultimatum. This thing was loaded with Bygone Jim moments, and I think my favorite Bygone Jim moment was probably one from Spider-Man, which bumped him up a notch. He just looked like a character that I was gonna be like, bruh, I don't know if I'm gonna care about you. This one got me. He said, when you can do things that I can do and you don't, and then the bad things happen, he basically was just saying, when you know you have a power and when you know you have a responsibility and you don't take that responsibility, that's worse.
With great power comes great responsibility without them actually saying it, is what that is.
Well, I liked it better how they put it in this one.
Matt.
Yep.
Don't.
I loved it when Ant-Man popped up. Like, I smiled. I was like, yes, he's back. Like, I was so happy to see him. The comedy spurts that they started putting in, when he showed up, I felt like when he showed up, the comedy started to go up. And I really appreciate that. Comedy is one of my favorite things, so I can really get on board with that. When he threw the truck and then the truck got big and then Homeboy's like, oh crap. Like, it was really, really good. Yep. Yeah, it was a water truck, exactly. They did a really good job with the fight scene at the airport. Everyone felt like an immovable object while also being an unstoppable force, which makes you're like, I don't know what's gonna happen. Like, what can happen? They did such a good job with it. Making Ant-Man get super gigantic, that's something that I didn't see coming, and they did it really. I was thinking to myself, the imagination is incredible here. Both sides basically constantly said that they were right. And like you said, Jeremy, I think they were both right while they were also both being wrong. Good point, Jenna. I love it that Tony had the ability to say, I was wrong. He verbally said it, and then when he showed up to help Cap, he said it in a different fashion. War Machine getting paralyzed, that for me did a lot because it showed gravity to the danger. And I complain about the fight scenes and how just like it's so over the top, ultimately because that makes me feel like there's no consequence to these Avengers. So for one of them to get seriously damaged, while I hate that for him, I love that for the story. I love that for the arc of the entire thing because it brings it a little bit back down and makes you hope a little more. Black Panther, really, really like him. I mean, he's right up there next to Tony for me, and I've only seen him for a handful of minutes now.
Fantastic character, and we'll be getting to his.
Really liked it.
We'll be getting to his movie too.
Really like. Oh, he's got his own movie. All right, like it. Zemo. Yeah. He said something right before it, but then he said, "An empire that crumbles from within, that's truly dead." He said something to that effect, and I was like, "Bruh, that's so true."
If people fight against a common enemy, then they can rebuild if they get defeated. Yeah. Because they're still on the same side, but if they fight amongst each other, there's nothing you can do instead. You're just dead.
Before we started watching, I said that if Cap was right, and if Tony was wrong, I would not stay true to Tony for the fact of just staying true to Tony. When Cap dropped that shield, after Tony was reaching for one last piece of being like, I'm in control. When he drops that shield, I got goosebumps. Like, I don't need the shield. I am who I am without that shield. So good. To me, that said, he's worthy of that shield because he doesn't have to have the shield. If you showed me this film and this film alone, and you said, Matt, which character is your character? Which team are you on? This movie alone, please, I would tell you that I would be team Captain America.
Yes! We got him! Welcome to the dark side. Great video. Thank you all for watching.
Let's all acknowledge that if Matt only saw this movie, he would not have understood anything. He needed a...
And that's why that point was completely pointless. No, but I'm not done. The reason that I love Tony, he has been given so much opportunity now. He's been faced with so many challenges, and this has been his toughest challenge by far. Mentally. Physically, okay, but when you get attacked mentally, that's when it really shows the depths of who you are. So I gotta tell you,
that was a good Bygone Jim moment by itself, Matt.
Shameless plug, but this is an opportunity for Tony again to be better than yesterday, every day. It's so pertinent, it really is. Like, in that moment, I was like, this is his toughest triumph. When they were fighting at the end, like, oh, I agreed with Cap so much more than I did in Tony with this one. But I gotta tell you, my highest rated video so far.
No way.
The highest rated one was 9.5, and that was Avengers. 9.6, this movie.
Wow. What a time. We did it, everyone.
So maybe I'm a fan. I said maybe.
Yes.
There's still 1,400 movies left, so we'll see.
We are over halfway. We are over halfway. To go back to Jeremy's question about the action sequences, as far as like the handheld sort of style, it didn't bother me at all in this movie. I'm aware of the criticism that like comparatively to like the comics, this one looks kind of more grayscale or like not as vibrant, I guess, the action sequences. It didn't really bother me watching it initially. I have seen people do like side by side, like upping the saturation and like playing with their own color gradings and seeing how they made it look, and I thought that it looked prettier, you know, watching it now, and I wasn't really thinking about that, but it doesn't bother me at all personally.
I think, you know, as somebody who is a filmmaker, I was kind of really curious about your take on that. A lot of people do like the wide shots that kind of hold and sustain the action for quite a bit longer. I mean, the fight between Bucky and Black Panther when neither of them are in their suits, there's a lot of quick cutting, but I was just kind of curious. That's one of the main criticisms that I've heard about Civil War, and I personally, I didn't have an issue with it. What do you think about that?
From a filmmaking standpoint, it really just depends on what they're going for. I felt the airport scene was supposed to be chaotic and all this stuff, and it's like trying to keep track. And then you have like this scene where Captain America and Winter Soldier are like fighting, and the camera is just going like side. It's just steady. As you mentioned, the fight between Bucky, Captain, and Iron Man, and they have that one shot going in, and you can just look at all the choreography. It was chaotic when it needed to be. It was slow and just letting us focus on the action when it needed to be. I think they did it. I think they did a fantastic job. Real quick, Pastor, what would you rate this movie?
The only reason why I'm giving it this low of a rating is because I know how the Infinity Saga, what the ending did to me, what it did to my soul, so I would give this movie a 9.7.
It's an incredibly high score, and I really echo so much of what you guys said. Matt, dude, eloquently put, man. I mean, like, you really brought a lot to the table. I think this is an 8.5 star movie. I think it's so impressive on how they were able to take something that many audiences might see as superficial and really integrate a lot of philosophical things into it. A lot of people like it, but I think it's tops. So yeah, one of my favorites.
Give it a 9.
I would give this a 9. Partly because I agree with you. I know it comes next.
My favorite character was not in this fight. Wolverine has a huge part in this fight. He's Spider-Man's counterpart. He is Cap's second hand as Spider-Man is Tony's. We got to see that, but the rights didn't let us see Wolverine on the screen. But trust me, this movie, it captures the same essence, I think.
I really appreciate all you guys joining us. This was a longer video, I know. It was highly anticipated. I wanted to make sure we talked about a lot of stuff. I appreciate you guys watching. If you enjoyed this video, leave me a like. It helps my channel out a lot. Comment down below, letting us know what you think about any of our opinions. If you agree, disagree, let us know. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. Consider supporting me on Patreon. It's a great way to get early access to these videos. It also helps me create more content more frequently, and I really appreciate it. As always, we appreciate you watching. We'll catch you in the next MCU movie. I'm really looking forward to it. We'll see you there. Take care.